Hey everyone, welcome to part 3 of MudFossil Reptiles in Northeast Texas. In this video, I would like to present some of the things that I have found out here on our iron ore hill, which involves hearts, lungs, the transition of flesh right here, as we can see depicted as it goes gravel. It's the only way I can describe it. It becomes like concrete. We'll also look at different iron ore organs or parts of creatures that I've found, brains, bones, and tendons, and a couple of creatures like 1 through 3 that I have listed on here. I'm going to have to do another part 4, in order to get everything uploaded that I have found thus far. Well, it's not everything, but it's part of it anyway. Anyway, I hope that you will enjoy the presentation and you will find it useful in your own research and studies to try to understand some of these transitions and how these ancient fossils have become fossilized or how they decay. It's amazing to start learning and studying some of this. It's very interesting. Okay, so let's look at some hearts. Some of these in this collection I did not know exactly what they were when I first found them, but I know this is a little heart because I found it with this lung. I believe this to be a heart as well as this one, and this is one of the first ones I found. This is like in a sandstone. When I washed it, it started eroding very rapidly, so I quit, trying to wash it off. And this, I think, may be a pair of lungs, but this isn't a rock. These are like hard, crystallized rocks. And then there's just various ones. I think this is in a clay, and it's in the shape of a heart. And various other ones. This is like in a hard rock, as is this. I believe these may be lungs now, but anyway, this is a few to kind of give us an idea of what I've been finding here. And this shot just shows a little bit more detail of a few that I have found. Like I say, I believe this, and I know that is attached to this, and most likely this piece and this appear to be hearts, as well as this one. That little small one that I found, which was attached to this, you can still see what I call concrete was still attached. And then I found this one not far from it, but it's not, I don't think this one fits that one because it was attached to that. Something along this line is what it looked like when I found it. We'll zoom in on this other one because this was the best one. I found it just on top of the ground. It's various shots and it's a little blurry, and I'm sorry. It's so hard. That one's better, but you can kind of see more of the detail on it. It's back side. This is the next piece that I found. Very unusual. This is a very hard type rock. Say it's almost like a dice. The hardness of it. And it's got like this oily tar on the back. So blurry. I'm sorry. These are some better shots right there. Trying to oil them up so they can be shown and presented a little better. You can see the dark red, the blood. And this was kind of sucked in on this side. And this is real hard. This is like a crystal, like glass. Total different kind of substance than these two. All three of them are different. They fossilize differently. Just trying to get all the views there. As you can see in this depiction, this is sort of like a skin or a fiber, and this is like clay on the inside. And then this is a hard substance like the other one that was just presented. There's different shots of it. I think, like I say, this may be a lung. It's different shots. It's got all this black running through it. And then the end of it. Yeah, that didn't turn out. Now here's one. This is a heart right here. And I know what it is because this part was attached to this stone right here. You can still see where it was kind of attached. But I feel 100% sure this is a lung. And then this is the other part of the lung, or what fossilized or left. This is like in a sandstone, but this is the heart. It's different angles. I'll zoom in on this heart. You can see it's still got like blood right there where it was attached. I was quite amazed when I found this. Started watching for the lungs when I would find a piece, trying to match them up. And then this is just a depiction of the different hearts. And this is just a little rock I found just a couple of days ago. They're in a very red, I mean deep red layer. It's out in the front yard. And I oiled it so you can see the better detail on it. It's amazing. Okay, and in this depiction, this is chicken hearts, and then this is a diagram of the different parts of the human body, which in many cases are all the animals are very similar. But you can see the heart right here and compare them. Even in the iron ore, it looks similar, pretty close to the same, as does the lung. Got lungs here, right here. And continuing to look at lungs, I found this stone. Doesn't look like much, just kind of odd shaped. And then I turned it over. And this was kind of notched out right here. And it's got what looks to be a blood vessel or some kind of a fiber vein right here. Kind of see it better in this photograph. Here's a closer view of it, but this is still right there. And then it's got this bloody residue right here, blood. And you see there's part of it right here, this vein, or a vein, something in here. And as you can see, it's kind of got a milky look to it. It's a hard stone. It's like crystal. And on the right, this is just a collection of a few that I have found in various sizes. Kind of give an idea. This is like in a crystal. It's crystallized on the outside. Various sizes. This one is this one right here on the bottom left. This one was probably the most perfect of the ones I have found. This is in a sandstone, and could easily disintegrate with a lot of water. I put a little bit of oil on this, and you can see the blood on it right here. And these are various shots of that particular lung. Let me zoom in on a couple of them. This is the outer side of it. You can see it's really red. It still has that blood in it. Then we'll flip it over so you can get a good close detail of it. Slide it up. You can check out this fiber, or where these veins had been. It's amazing detail on this piece of sandstone. You still see the blood right there. Amazing. And here it is again. This is the very end of it, but you can still see that fiber where the veins were coming out right here in the blood on the end. And then this is another picture of it without the oil. So if you see something like that, you know what it is. This one here is that one that I found that's it's like crystallized. Here's a bigger picture of it. You see it's real rough, and it's just like real sandy, like real hard, like sandpaper. This is a piece that Roger at MudFossils verified for me, or in his opinion, is a lung, and you can see the blood right here on the end of it. It's got like a little indentation here. This is probably where the heart was at, but anyway, she found this rock and she was most excited. And here are just two different side views of it. You still see that blood in it, in this rock. In this depiction, it's an interesting piece. I was out in the front yard, and I happened to see this part of this rock. The rest of it was underground, and it was wedged up underneath this stone here. When I went to pull this stone up, it broke in two pieces. But this is just in the front yard, and there's been lots of cars and stuff that's been driven over this. Now, to look at this, it's kind of hard to tell what it is, but as I hope to present, you will soon discover that this is a heart and this is a lung. In this next depiction, you can kind of see it's kind of hollowed out right in here. And this rock, like I say, it was wedged up underneath this particular stone. This is a close-up of one side of this particular stone, which I feel confident it's a heart. You can see the little crystals running through it. I'll try to zoom in a little bit so you can get a closer look. This is another view. Try to zoom in so you can get a better look. This is a top view. This is the end of it. This would be like at the base of the heart. I'll zoom in so you can get a better look. This is the other side. Just a close-up view so you can kind of see it. This is the underside of this particular rock, and you can kind of see how it's kind of layered through here. I'll zoom in a little tighter so you can kind of see how it's layered up there. Interesting rock. Never would have thought it was a lung. This is the back side, underside of it. And right here is where that rock was cradled, and it was just had it a little bit of the tip of it was sticking out where I could see it. But you can see where it was cracked, but it just kind of lays right in here in this little groove. And here's a depiction showing it sitting in that little cradle on the back side of this lung. Here's another view. And just overlook this side. Use that part right here just to kind of hold this in place since it was broken. I'm going to zoom in so you can kind of see what looks to be like flesh right through here. Kind of get an idea of what that looks like. Here's another view. You can kind of see a line kind of going up that way. But you see the texture on it, on this lung. You can kind of see it through here. And here it is from the end, looking down at it. When I found it, this part right here was out a little bit from the side of this rock. And that's the part that I saw, and then the rest of it was underneath this rock. And this was belly down. This was down on the ground. This was the top of the rock. And I had no idea that that's what this was until I picked this up. And this is just another view of the cradle part of the back of that lung. Let's see if I can zoom in. You can just kind of see how the flesh, rotted away, got washed away. It did not transition to either one. It did transition to this sandstone mixed with iron ore, nor did it change to this quartz-looking stone. But I thought this was an interesting find, to say the least. Find something like this intact and right next to each other to help identify what they are. Okay, so now let's go to flesh that transitions into concrete. I don't know how else to put it. I had found these little pieces, and some of them pretty good sized pieces. This is bigger than my hand right here. Just laying out there in the pasture, the driveway, in the front yard. Just go out after a rain and just find these little piles of concrete, not knowing what the heck it was. Didn't even realize what it was until recently. But as you can see, this has got like a design on it. This is not like fresh poured concrete. This just come up out of the ground. It's really weird. But I started seeing right here is like there's some kind of flesh right in there. Some kind of a reptile flesh mixed with all these little rocks, and it's inside this concrete. This tells me that these stones was formed inside this creature. It's not on the outside of the creature. This was formed on the inside during the fossilization process. This is transitioned to this concrete, which will eventually break down and fall away, but the stones will remain right in here. This is a piece of dirt that I believe was underneath this, just to kind of show, what kind of a layer I pulled this up out of. This is just a different view of some of them, and you see the stones inside and that dirt. And I added this piece. This was an interesting piece because I find a lot of these different rocks like this that's real dark red, and I was trying to figure out what they came out of, where were they coming from. And I found this stone here, and you can see it's just right inside this layer of some creature in this body part, whatever it is, and it's in this hard rock, like we call it iron ore, but it's probably more like a sandstone mixed with the iron ore. Let's see, what does that look like? Does that look like some kind of lizard skin wrapped up into this little wad of concrete? That's what it looks like to me. Let's zoom in What does that look like to you? Amazing, in my opinion, to see this creature break down into these layers with the concrete. So what is concrete made from? Makes you wonder, huh? It's a different view. Let's zoom in, see what you think. Check it out. Look at that. You can even still looks like you see the skin, the scales on it. All them stones inside this concrete. And this creature had been a creature at one time. Just a closer view. You see all the different stones in this piece. That quartz and this green. This is another piece I found, and it's still intact pretty much, except the inside has gone into concrete, or what I call concrete. It's deteriorating, decomposing, and you can see the different angles. You see the what's left of the hide of it on the outside. Right here, it's like that hard, it's not plastic, but it's like a dice. It's a hard silicone kind of feel to it. But you see all the different rocks coming up out of this piece right here. We'll increase the size on this one so you can get a better look at the different color stones on the inside. And here's another view. I especially thought this was an interesting view or shot. It looks like it's got like a little fin right here in this concrete. Let's make it a little bigger. It's going to blur. But just so you can get a better look at what looks like a little fin right here. This is another piece of that concrete creature. It's where it's transitioning or decomposing, falling apart. I think this was in the last video under the armor and stuff that I found there on the side of the house. And this just shows the outline of the what had been part of the creature. You see part of him here and here, pieces of him, all in this concrete, and then the stones all attached on the inside that was formed, fossilized inside the flesh of this creature. In this little collection, it's kind of an interesting find. I found this off my back porch after a rain, and I found this piece of iron ore, and this little piece of concrete was just kind of laying there to the side of it, or partly on it, and it's got this dark red, like blood, on this piece, and you see the red all through it. But in some of the same area I found this, looks like maybe another heart. But I wanted to show some of the iron ore pieces. You know, when you see shapes like this, kind of like in the shape of a head, or a piece of bone that's got this blood red in it. This stone here that's got like a straight line, but it's got this blood in it. This is the part that was attached to the creature, and this is the part that made a rock, and the rest of it got sloughed off or transitioned into iron ore or something else. Or that's what I'm finding, and that's my opinion. And this is pretty much how I found it, or something similar. Anyhow, this was like partly, like right here, it was kind of laying off of it, sloughed off of this piece. You can see how it kind of lines up with this right here. Here's a better view. Enlarge the picture. Here's that straight edge on this stone where it's real bloody on the inside looking, but it made into a rock. And this is the iron ore. It's just in little, you see the layers on it. This is scalloped out like there was something in here, probably something like this, that got washed away. And then here's this, what I think is a heart. And I think this is some type of flesh right here. One more close-up shot. And check out this piece of iron ore right here. The way it's set up. Kind of folded over looking. Here's another piece, and you can see the quote concrete coming up out of this piece right here, as it is here. But you see here's clay. It's what I'm finding. Once it gets to this point, that means that all this has already washed off of it, of whatever was left of the creature. You're down to this part, the clay, but all of this washes off. In this collection is just little pieces of clay that I have found, just kind of give you an idea of what some of this stuff looks like when I find it, or even some of the pieces that, I don't know, part of the creature that's like green skin looking stuff. But I have found so many different things in trying to keep track of all of them, you know, to catalog them. And in this depiction, you can see more of this clay, and you can see kind of a, what I call silicone like substance right here on the sides. And this, you can kind of see it running all through it, through the piece. I'll enlarge the one so you can kind of see the texture of it. This silicone looking stuff. It's amazing. This is how it's breaking down, this what's left of the flesh, or the internal makeup of this creature. It's breaking down into all these little bitty pieces of clay, silicone, rubbery like stuff. Here's the one on the bottom. You can see all the different texture. I think I showed this in my last video, but it's worth showing again because it feels like, I mean, not that I've ever held cold dead flesh, but that's as close as I can get to what that would feel like. This substance, what's left of this organic creature. And one more shot of that same piece on the other side. I wanted to go back to the side of my house, and I showed in the last video about this particular rock right here that was pretty flat on the ground that night that I was taking those pictures. But I want you to see how incredibly green this has become, this algae. This did not happen like over summer. This is just recently, since all this rain. Anyway, there's a lot of, I'm going to say, blood in this soil, which I know there is because of all the red that's in it. But check this out right here. This was pretty flat, and you can see here it's kind of lifting and tilting to the side. It's tilting over. And you can see this other part of whatever part this creature is, it's kind of tilting it out. I believe what's happening is that it is forming that concrete on the back side of this stone, and it's lifting it up out of the ground. It's just kind of tilting it over. I think that's where I find a lot of different things. It's when that ground gets wet, it starts hitting those layers. It starts eroding off from the rain. The rain goes down, and then it starts hitting this particular layer where what we call concrete is part of this organic creature. It starts getting wet, and then it starts expanding out, starts sloughing off, and then it just starts raising up out of the ground. Amazing. to try to, sort this out and understand it. Okay, so in sorting this particular section out, this reptile flesh transferring over into a concrete and sloughing off this layer of flesh, whatever you want to call it. This is human, but I would think that it would be pretty close to the same in many ways. You have all these different layers. So if this is the upper layer, and because we're down into the middle sections here, inside this fleshy substance, or what had been fleshy, we're looking at this kind of a layer that is made up of this kind of thing right here, in my opinion. Anyway, I'm not a biologist and I'm not a scientist or an archaeologist. I'm just trying to sort this out. This, in my opinion, there's got to be all this stuff on the inside here that is making up part of this concrete as we know it in this piece of fossilized reptile. Okay, so now let's jump over to brains. Now this is an interesting one because I've found several that I'm fairly certain are, and Roger believes that this one is right here. It's a geode. It's been cut in half. As we can see, we're still looking at humans, but pretty much the same would apply to most creatures, just not as big. Here's the back side. We got this rock in Arizona at Meteor Crater. It was a geode, and our sun broke it in half, and this is what it looks like on the inside. And this is a closer up view of this particular geode, or what was sold to us as a geode. You see it's got all this kind of strange kernel looking stuff on the inside, and then it's got this milky white looking stuff, and then it's got this dark bloody look around the edges of it. And this here is one that I found on the top of the hill just not too long ago. I saw maybe just the top of it and pulled it up out of the dirt, and there it was. And then these are various ones. I feel like this one is. I'm not sure about these other two, but I feel certain that this one and this one is a brain. And I'll enlarge it so you can see the real pretty fine crystals on it. See, even it looks fleshy looking. And this is very red, about the size of a walnut. And it's another one that I think may be one. Just laying there in the dirt, top of that hill, back where my big creature is. I don't know what it is. Okay, on this upper left hand corner you can see that this brain is bigger than 3 inches. This is about the size of a walnut. So whatever had this brain was a much larger animal. I've heard so many archaeologists talk about dinosaurs having the brain about the size of a walnut. Well, there's one right there, but guess what? Here's a 3 inch, over 3 inches. Probably about 3.5 inches in size. Much larger than a walnut. Though they did have a walnut. There's one right there. And this is the smaller one. that I believe to be a brain. You see different angles of it. This is a real hard, almost like it feels like a dice is what it feels like. It's like a real heavy duty polished plastic kind of stuff, but you know, it's hardened. Okay, so moving to bones and tendons and muscle groupings and what have you. The other day I was on Google Earth and I happened to be in the Colorado Springs area checking out some stuff, and found a couple of dragons that were laying there, their heads anyway. And I was following this one little valley, and I was following this line here. And as I'm following it, I came up to this point, and I was trying to figure out what this area was. Well, as I zoomed in, as we can see down here on the bottom left, you can see that this has been quarried at some point. You know, man has gone in there and they've cut layers out of this creature, this serpent-looking, snake-looking thing right here. You can even see, you can even make out like part of a ridge of bones right up through here. And then when you get over here in this bottom picture, you can kind of even see some of the creamy coming in there, that bone mass with the red bloody stuff, the blood. But this would be like a layer that is still pliable. It's still probably in a clay form. This outer layer being baked by the sun would be very hard. It'd be a hard sandstone surface. It would repel water pretty well over time. But then this layers here would still be pretty soft and easy to cut out and make bricks or blocks, what have you. Now you imagine this being a monument, you know, some guy going in there and deciding that he's going to build him a temple or something, and he just starts cutting out these little layers because there's these little fibers that separate each of these layers. In this example up here at the top of the muscles and stuff, there's going to be this little webby layers in between. So you can make your steps however you want. This is still soft. You can go in there and notch it out however a man wanted to carve it out. I just find this very interesting because this is really a big creature down in this valley, and it's not by itself. There's a bunch more. Something major happened in that valley up there around Colorado Springs. There's a lot of dragon serpents in that area that many of them got lopped up, chopped up. And the coordinates is right here in the very bottom of the screen, right here, for those who might want to go check it out. Now, the reason why I was showing that is to go into this. This is a piece, it's a little over 6 inches long, that my husband found on the top of the hill back there where I found the brain in the same area. And we thought at first that it was a bone because it's real hard. It felt like a bone, kind of looked like bone, maybe bone fragments. But as we got kind of cleaned up here, you can see it's got a different look to it. It's got these little fiber looking things that run through this part of the rock, and it's like like this right here. It's this part. It's like a muscle, and it's fossilized in a rock, and it's not no piece of petrified wood. This is like this. Looks just like one of these muscles coming up off this leg right here. That's what it looks like. It has bloody substance on it, blood residue, as you can see. It's real bloody looking. And then you can see the different layers running through here. I'll enlarge it so you can kind of get a better look. But you can see all these different little layers running through this piece of rock. or this piece of flesh. Here's the side view of it. You can see all this red, this bloody substance, blood. It's just blood. This is what it is. It's got blood on it. And this is the other side, so you can get a good look at it. Now this may just be a piece of flesh. It's hard to tell, but it's interesting the way it's got all these different colors on it. And it's got the blood right here, that dried blood. And this is the back side, and it's got a dried blood kind of pulled down through here, and then it's real bloody on the very bottom. And then this is a piece of bone, and it still had that bright red on the inside, so I just put a little oil on it to show it, and I mean that just jumped right out of there to show that these do indeed still have blood inside some of these parts, these organs. It still remains, it's still there. It's just transitioned into red clay, or iron oxide, or whatever element you want to call it, but it's still when it was in this living creature, it was blood. It's what we call blood. And this is just a little bone fragment that I found in one of the layers. They are actually probably just on top of the ground. Now that I think about it, it was just kind of washed up. But I wanted to show it because it's out of one of these ancient creatures. And it is interesting because it shows the different layers of the bones. You see them right through here. All these different little layers of bones. And then the way it kind of scallops out this way. I thought that was very interesting. And you can even see the different details on the bone right through here. This is a closer up view of that lower one on the bottom left. You can see all these different little layers of bone coming through. You can see how it just kind of scallops up that way. You can see all the little markings on this bone. And in this view, you can see how it just kind of scrapes up that way. Just kind of flakes around. And there's another view. It could have been a head, maybe. I'm not sure what it is, but it kind of favors a head to me. It's hollowed out through here. And I'm showing this right here. So when I'm looking on Google Earth and I see something like this at this location, and I start seeing this white popping out through here, and I go in and investigate, and then it's pretty interesting. Or like here on the right hand side, you can see it's in these different little layers. Looks very much like something like this, except this is on a much bigger scale. So I have to wonder about this little bone fragment right here with these different layers when I see something really huge like this on Google Earth. I see the similarities. I see a layer of bone that is deteriorating right here. It's in these little layers. Looks just like this. And by the way, if you don't know, if you haven't checked this out at this location, let me zoom in. Looks totally like a dragon head right here. It's got that black inky stuff coming out of its mouth right over here. You make out part of the head of it going that way and around this way. That's what it looks like to me. Another dragon head at this location. This is another piece of bone fragment that I found. It's real smooth. It's almost like a skull bone, like you would find on the top of a skull. And it's a rock. It's real hard. Feels hard. And this is the one side view of it. And then when I flipped it over, I saw all this red. Put a little oil on it, and look what happened. It looks just like blood, flesh, right here. This is a close-up of that piece. See the texture on it. The black. This is a side view. You see it's got, I don't know, some kind of a ligament or something, tendon, something running through there. And this is the back side. And just check it out for yourself. Amazing. You can just see the different textures. Look like it just happened. And this view shows the bone part of it, or what looks to be bone. And then it shows the fleshy part on the underside. Now doing a kind of a comparison here. This being in these layers, and this being layers of mica or skin. Understand, I'm still trying to learn all these technicalities and these scientific terms, but this is very similar to what we're kind of seeing here. So this could be layers of skin, which would account for that hollowed out look, and maybe this is what this is and not bone, but it looks like a bone to me. I always associate bones being white. But this right here is not the same looking thing, in my opinion, as this. This right here is not, this was preserved in the layers of mud. This is, looks like a bone to me, and this looks like meat on the back side. This is an alligator or a crocodile that's been, it's in a drought. I think it's in Paraguay. And so this creature's going to decay. It's already decaying. It's going to decay pretty rapidly because it's exposed to the environment. It's on the top side. It's not buried under layers of mud for thousands of years to preserve any of it. Okay, so now let's go to creature number one. These are ones that I've tried to dig up and as complete as I could get them. Some of them are in a real bad state, but I just tried to do the best I could and to try to preserve them. And I will just go this way, and we'll just kind of flip through. I found this part of this nose to begin with, and then I didn't know what part it was. I just started trying to pull up pieces of it as I went along. I think this may be the head, but I'm not sure. It's just what it is. You see this deep red bloody layer. I will zoom in a little more so you can kind of see just how red this is as I was digging up these pieces. But this is what I pulled up, and these are the stones that were in some of these layers. So you can just kind of get an idea of what all was in that area. I think this may have been a boy critter. I think this may be his private parts. Not sure. But anyway, this is one critter that I pulled up. And I'll just kind of flip through the pictures so you can kind of see the different angles and what all I was looking at when I pulled it up. This is fresh out of the mud. You see all the different colors. It's got that sandstone, that green, yellow sandstone on it. But that head is like, it's almost like a crystal, or it's like that strange heavy plastic like a dice or something. but it's heavy, feels very heavy. See, I don't know, I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, it didn't hold up. It fell apart when I was trying to clean it. You see the blood, it's really red in these pieces. There it is. I cleaned it up a little bit. Not sure. Maybe a head. I don't know. Very odd. Anyway, but this piece was just laying there, and when I went to pick it up, it had more with it. So I tried to grab what I could. See, it's got this little line right there. It's like a layer. This is what it looks like after it was cleaned up. It's very unusual looking. I don't know if that was the mouth and it crystallized or what. But it has all these little stones that was in there in this mix of dirt or flesh, along with the clay. So this is already broke down. This is what I kind of think that it may have looked like. Didn't have a very long neck. Let me zoom over here. You can see this. I got it cleaned up pretty good. It has a piece of iron ore right here. This is what was attached. This was two things right here. This was the first two pieces. And then you can just kind of see some of the other pieces as I washed them off, and some of it fell out, and I tried to keep it together as I was cleaning off the pieces. These little rocks, minerals. I think this may have been the tail. But all of this was part of and in these layers with this creature. I'll zoom in on what I think may be the head. I think these may be the teeth right there. And it just crystallized. It's kind of scalloped out right there. This is that iron ore piece. Just fit right in here. May have it upside down. Anyway, but it fit right. It was in between. So this was a cartilage or something like that that joined them. And this pretty little stone was part of this piece right here that's turned to clay and that mushy stuff. It's fixing to fall apart. This is another view. You can see it's kind of ragged. This turned into this stone while this part didn't. This part's going to just continue to decay while this part remains, this little stone. There's one more view of it. You can see the different colors. It's a pretty little stone, whatever it is, part of this creature. And I'm just going to show this because it's in the different layers of this clay, so you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like in this stages of decay. This sandstone and all this red, it looks like decayed flesh, which is what it is. And this would be like blood right here, like iron going into iron oxide or iron ore. And this is just some more pictures of what that quote clay looked like that was in this layer that was part of it. Look how red. Zoom in so you can get a good look at what this blood looks like as it, or this creature as it decays. Okay, so let's go to creature number 2 that I tried to dig up. And this is in a kind of a dry state at this point. It was very wet when I pulled it up. I think this may be the head, and then it's just in various pieces. Hard to pull it up. Lost a lot of it trying to get it up out of the dirt. But you can kind of see some of the stones and stuff that were attached. Even some concrete looking stuff. I'll zoom in on what I believe to be the head. And then this layer broke in half. And then it's jointed. In various parts, pieces. This is just another view. And another, and you can kind of see how it just kind of locks in place through some of this. And this right here, we'll zoom in on that. So you can see the inside of this creature. See them layers of this, they want to call it clay, what have you. It's the inside of a creature that's decaying. I see erosion now, that's what I'm going to think of. Every time I see erosion, right there, it's what I'm seeing on my heel. There's another view. This is the inside. I opened it up, and this is the bottom of that, what looks like the head. You can still see all this red, and you see the stones up in here. It's a pretty big mushy mess. I'll zoom in again. Get a better look. You see all these different layers. It's another view. A little closer up, you see the stones. Okay, this is another one. Creature number 3. Don't know where the head is or anything, but I went to try to pull it up, and I really was amazed at the different colors on the inside. I wanted to show that, you know, for those that might be interested in trying to understand these different layers within a decaying fossil. You see some of the different clays on the inside, along with some of the stones and things that are found within it. This could be the head, I don't know for sure. But anyway, it just kind of gives an idea of what some of this stuff looks like in these different layers.